A 19-year-old girl gave birth right in the hospital toilet, and the police are urgently investigating whether it was a murder case or an act of ignorance by a student. And looking up at the camera, she was seen running into the toilet. Right after that, a nurse shouted, "We discovered the body of a baby in the restroom." Hello, I'm Mr. High, a 90-year-old man who loves telling strange, dark, and mysterious stories. If you want to keep hearing true stories that make your heart beat faster than usual, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell. That will give me more motivation to tell you things that you might never believe are real. That night, a young woman named Alexi Trezo came to the emergency room because of back pain. That was a reasonable excuse for a young person to go to the hospital in the middle of the night. What was not reasonable was that she showed no signs of an imminent pregnancy. According to what others recounted, she went into the restroom and stayed there longer than usual. Staff knocked several times, then opened the door to find blood spread across the floor. Perihet, and she was trying to clean up.
We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
And, shockingly, a baby was hidden in the trash can, covered by a clean plastic bag placed on top. The jumbled words, the cries, the fragmented confession. It just came out of me. I didn't know what to do. All became evidence, but also fragments to decode the psychological state of a person who had just experienced an extreme biological event. In terms of behavior, there are two common lines of inference. One is the panic reflex of someone who just gave birth. They might try to hide it as a primitive response out of fear, shame, or lack of knowledge about immediate care. The other is deliberate behavior intended to conceal evidence. The small details, placing the baby in the trash, covering it with a plastic bag, whether gloves were used, whether the baby was moved elsewhere, record a chain of actions that psychology calls disorganized behavior due to acute stress, or in another case, calculated concealment behavior. As investigators, we must analyze whether that action was the result of overwhelming panic, lack of medical awareness, or deliberate destruction of evidence. And nothing is more unsettling than having to balance at the same time the need to protect the dignity of the accused and the right to truth for a voiceless victim, a baby without a voice. The interviews, recordings, police body camera footage, all were pieces of the puzzle. Sitting and listening back to the audio in the hospital room, hearing the girl stammer, "It came out of me. I didn't know what to do." I did not hear a cold-blooded killer. I heard panic, shock, and then talk of very real fears. Fear of being abandoned, fear of being condemned, fear of facing legal consequences. But emotion is not evidence. It is only a signal that other evidence must be examined. Time of birth, objective medical findings, traces on the body, and anyone who may have witnessed or assisted. In court, the defense's argument revolved around medical privacy rights. They claimed the collection of evidence violated medical regulations and confidentiality. This was not simply a legal tactic. It raised a question before the community. When medical privacy collides with the need to investigate a death, where must the boundary be drawn? The legal system must weigh protecting human rights against resolving a death case fairly. The prosecution argued that the right to life protection outweighs privacy rights if there are signs of a serious crime, a stance that easily divides public opinion. So what do we believe in? Do we believe in the hesitant confession of a young girl or in the cold forensic data? The answer is not to choose one side, but to piece together both. Forensic science gives us the tools to know whether the baby ever breathed. Psychology helps us understand why a teenager might choose to hide it. But psychology also reminds us, in many cases, concealment actions come from feelings of being socially shunned, from a lack of support networks, and from shame greater than fear of the law. When society judges harshly, panic-driven choices can all too easily become tragedy. The bathroom door shut tight, the smell of blood spread into the hospital hallway. And at that very moment, everything turned into a nightmare no one expected. What seemed like just back pain from a teenage girl became a scene that witnesses later described as resembling a real-life horror movie. And the deeper we look into the details, the more the chain of events links together into a grotesque picture, difficult to defend. On January 27, 2023, around 1 in the morning, Alexi Treviso and her mother walked into the emergency room complaining of severe back pain. The nurses began the basic procedures: painkillers, blood, and urine tests. It was then they discovered that this 19-year-old girl was pregnant. But before they could inform her, Alexei hurriedly asked to use the restroom, saying she needed to relieve herself. The door closed, and then came a series of repeating sounds: the flush of water, the paper towel dispenser, the constant running of water. Staff knocked several times, and she always replied that she did not need help. But the unusual silence gradually turned into deadly suspicion. When the door was finally opened with a spare key, Alexei stepped out with a blank look, staring through everyone, saying nothing. A nurse went in to check, and the scene that hit them made them shudder. Blood splattered everywhere, from the floor, the toilet, to the wall behind. There were streaks half wiped away, as if someone had tried to erase the traces. When questioned, Alexei only gave a short reply: "I'm on my period." But the test results confirmed another truth: she had just given birth. Witnesses, including nurses and janitorial staff, all described the same thing.
All over the floor, because even when I was going into the bathroom, there was blood on the coming out of the bathroom on the floor.
Oh, okay.
So it was everywhere.
Okay.
So there's blood coming out of the bathroom? Do you know how far it went? Okay.
I think they were the person that was in there, her footsteps. And so I started getting the trash out, and then when I did that, I seen that there was a baby in there. And that's when I freaked out, and I called Lori and HT, or the nurses up front, and because there was a baby in the trash.
When I talked to her that night, she said she cleaned the blood first, then went to...
Yeah, and I usually, when there's like one or two things in the wastebasket, I usually pick it up and take it out, but I didn't that night. And then, like, I've been kicking myself on this because I feel like, you know, if I would have just taken it out, I would have seen it.
Well, no one prepares for that type of thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Most people don't act like that. So don't blame yourself for it.
Yeah. Because
it's not a natural thing to do.
Well, I mean, it's just hard because I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother. And I've dealt with death before, but never like this.
Right.
You know, like, it was horrible.
I know that he came to me and said there was some issues because they had ran a pregnancy test on her, and they found out she was pregnant. And she was adamant. The mother was in the room with her and was adamant and denying to.
Did you see that, or did it was?
No, Chris came to me and told me this was what going on because we were having an issue.
Okay.
And he was worried about the mother, the dynamics between the mother and the daughter, because the daughter was completely denying she was pregnant, and the mother was relatively upset about that she was pregnant. And then I told Lori, call housekeeping. They got to come clean this up. Which time she called Leela, who was on call for housekeeping. Then I was just sitting there, and then the next thing, Lori comes and goes, HT, oh my God, you better come to the bathroom. I go in the bathroom, and she goes, something's in the trash can. I'm like, I looked in there, there's a clean liner. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, pick it up. I picked it, I could feel the weight. I knew then we had a serious problem. I just grabbed the trash can and went right across the hall into trauma 2. The liner was pulled out, but there was another trash bag in there in the bottom, but it was all it was rolled up. So I had to tear it apart. And then, of course, I saw the baby in there. So I pulled the baby out, got him on the bed, checked for signs of life. There was absolutely no life whatsoever. I immediately came out of there after I did that, went into the room where she was performing the vaginal exam, and I immediately told her, you have to come out now. And she came out, and we went into trauma 2, and she reassessed the baby. At that time, between me and Chris and her, we determined, there was no reason for us to begin any life saving. The baby was completely gone.
She essentially was scared. She was worried that she was going to get in trouble. She did have a back and forth with her mother that was just about like, they had said, the mom was upset because she had had sex and hadn't told her. So they were going back and forth on that. And then she was just denying it, which was a little wasn't really deniable at that point in time.
Right.
So the patient was denying having sex at this point to her mom?
Yeah, she was trying to state that she was still a virgin.
After she came in from the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And all the blood and all that. Okay.
So did the pelvic, and then I think shortly after that the mom was in the waiting room after that. And then she was just worried. She was asking me like what was going to happen. I told her obviously I did not know.
Is this when you found out she was worried about getting in trouble? Did she tell you anything like?
She didn't say anything about what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
She was just essentially worried that she was just going to get in trouble.
So that's what I mean. Were those the questions she was asking?
Mm-hmm. Like what's going to happen to me? Like that kind of thing.
Did she ever ask about the baby?
No.
Not once.
Is there anything we haven't asked you think we should know?
I'm just going to tell you this. I've never, ever seen a reaction like that girl. I don't even know what to say about it. There was zero emotion. I don't even know what to say. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen women that are only married, or not married, but pregnant for 6 weeks and they lose their baby and they're a mess. You know what I mean? That girl went into that bathroom, made no sounds at all, and the baby came out of her. And I don't even know how she functioned that way to do what she did.
We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. He came out at me and I didn't know what to do.
Lexi, I told you about this. I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth.
It was not crying or nothing.
What did you do to it?
Okay, stop right here. Stop. Number one priority, guys. Number one priority is she just had a baby. I don't know if she's delivered the placenta. She's bleeding significantly.
Spread out like a massacre. This was no longer a normal medical scene, but a classic indicator in criminal investigation, an attempt to conceal something in a state of panic. Scientific evidence shows that after childbirth, a woman cannot control the amount of blood loss, and blood will spread widely without immediate medical support. That is why finding blood on the wall and half-wiped stains raised suspicion that she was not only frightened, but also deliberately trying to hide what had just happened. Meanwhile, Alexi's mother, Rosa, sat in the waiting room with the family of the baby's father.
Treatment before we even talked to her because she needs to be stabilized. So that's why she didn't let it out.
Okay.
Once she gets stabilized, we'll try and talk to her. The baby's gonna go up north for autopsy. More likely it'll be done within the next day.
Is she gonna get detained after, like, she's released? How?
Get what?
Like, are y'all gonna take her into custody or anything like that? Like,
That depends on what the DA finds. We have to wait for the autopsy to come back to see what happened. Because right now with how everything happened, we're gonna do an investigation, get more information from the OMI, Office of Medical Investigator up north. And with that, we present that to the DA, see what the DA wants to do with charges, if any at all.
You know, I didn't know. I honestly didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know. I just thought, like she said, I had back pain more. My hips are hurting me. I think I need to go to the chiropractor. I said, okay, let's go tomorrow. But she was like in really a lot of pain, and you know.
When did it start?
Like the pain?
Yes.
Yesterday she said it was really bad, that her hips were hurting and her back. And then last night we're on the phone together and she said her hips were hurting bad. And I asked her if anything else was hurting, and she said just everything. And she went to sleep.
But she's a cheerleader too, so she's big in cheers. They have a cheer competition. She works out. I mean,
She insisted she had no idea her daughter was pregnant. She recounted that in the days before, Alexi only complained of back and hip pain, even considering seeing a chiropractor, thinking it was a musculoskeletal issue. One detail made the case stranger. Alexi continued her normal life, still doing cheerleading, competing, and exercising constantly. Medically, this is rare with a full-term pregnancy, but not impossible. Some cases of hidden pregnancy have been recorded, particularly with petite builds or strong physiques from training. After giving birth, Alexi continued to lose heavy amounts of blood and was urgently transferred by helicopter to a trauma center with obstetric specialists. Meanwhile, police and forensic investigators processed the scene. They emphasized the baby's death required an autopsy to determine whether the infant had ever breathed. If there were signs of life, this would no longer be a medical incident, but a criminal case. If not, it could be the tragic result of ignorance and panic. And in my view, it is precisely the silence and contradictory details. On one hand, Alexi denied knowing she was pregnant, behaving as if shocked and powerless. But on the other hand, the act of placing a clean plastic bag over the trash can where the baby's body was found suggested a certain degree of arrangement, an action beyond instinct. This is exactly the point that the prosecution and the defense will exploit thoroughly. Was it deliberate conduct or just unconscious panic? The nurse recalled trembling. At first, they only saw the spotless liner. Nothing unusual. But when they lifted it, they felt the abnormal heaviness. And when they tore it open, the truth was revealed. A newborn's body wrapped in a plastic bag, cold and lifeless. They immediately rushed the baby to the emergency room, placed him on a bed to check for signs of life. But it was too late. No heartbeat, no breath. What chilled the witnesses most was not just the loss, but the attitude of the young girl, Alexi Travisso. After everything that had happened, she was nearly emotionless, shedding no tears, asking no questions about the child. Instead, the only thing she worried about was, is this going to get me in trouble? The medical staff confirmed they had never seen such a cold reaction. In reality, many women who miscarry as early as 6 weeks collapse in grief, yet this girl walked out of the bathroom in silence, leaving behind a scene like something from a horror film. In criminal psychology, such a lack of emotion is usually tied to two possibilities. One is emotional paralysis, often found in people experiencing extreme shock, when the nervous system is forced to shut down for survival. The other is the behavior of someone who had prepared in advance, leaving no room for emotion. The ambiguity between a panicked victim and a conscious perpetrator is what makes this case so difficult. In May 2023, after the forensic report confirmed this was a homicide, Alexi was arrested at her home. She was released on bail after posting $100,000 to complete her school year and attend graduation. But from there, the real legal battle began. The defense argued that the words Alexi uttered in the hospital bed, captured on police body camera, should not be admitted as evidence since they were part of a conversation between patient and doctor, protected by medical privacy, and she had never been read her Miranda rights. The prosecution countered that the police never interrogated her. They were only performing basic procedures like asking her name and identification, similar to arriving at a traffic accident scene. The state Supreme Court now had to decide, did the officer's actions, even without direct questioning, unintentionally create a situation where the accused incriminated herself? And the entire case hinged on a fragile boundary, whether that unintentional confession could become the key to convict her or be thrown out as a violation of privacy. If excluded, the prosecution would struggle. If admitted, Alexi's fate was nearly sealed. One life had ended in silence, while the only person who knew exactly what happened shed not a single tear. This was not only a criminal case, but also a mirror reflecting loneliness, fear, and the split-second choices that can destroy two lives, one gone and one that may forever be locked behind prison walls. When the truth was laid bare, the courtroom nearly held its breath. This case was not only a cold-blooded tragedy in a hospital restroom, but also a fierce confrontation between medical privacy and the duty of criminal investigation. What shocked everyone most was the detail. Whether Alexi Travisso's words, recorded in her exhausted state after childbirth, constituted legitimate evidence of guilt. From the start, the police had not entered the room blindly. They had been briefed by the nurses, already knowing information, details that should have been reserved for medical staff. And that very fact raised the question. When investigators stepped in, were they performing their duty or exploiting private data from a patient in crisis? Why had the boundary, meant to be clear, between doctor, the caregiver, and police, the investigator, become so blurred? In the video, at one point, the doctor asked the officers to leave so he could perform a gynecological exam, and they complied. But moments later, they returned to stand guard at the door, forming a barrier. A 19-year-old girl, bleeding heavily, having just endured violent childbirth in a bathroom, was hemmed in by 4 uniformed men and a doctor, leaning toward the investigator's side. The question before the court was, in such a situation, could a young woman truly feel free to refuse or to walk away? The answer, for any rational observer, was surely no. This was the very point for the defense to strike back. They argued that Alexi had never been read her Miranda rights and that all her statements in the hospital could not be considered voluntary. But the prosecution responded bluntly. Alexi had not called for help, had not alerted anyone even as she gave birth in a restroom. For 30 minutes, she remained silent until a janitor accidentally opened the trash can and discovered the baby boy's body. Under the law, medical privacy protects patients only when they provide truthful information. Here, concealment from the start had already shaken that privilege. And above all, parents also need to reflect on their responsibilities. Understand that children need not only physical care, but also knowledge, especially about reproductive health and adolescent psychology. If parents listen, stay open, without imposing or judging, children will dare to share when they face problems. Parental empathy and companionship can prevent tragedies like this. Do not let your child choose silence out of fear. Give them the trust that family is the safest place to seek help. Because one honest conversation today can save an entire life tomorrow. The case is closed. Thank you for following me to the end of the story. If you find it interesting, please click the subscribe button to give me more motivation. If you want me to analyze any case, please leave a comment below. I will read them. Thank you. See you again.